Start the stream. Start a couple minutes early. There we go. Got a lot of headroom here. I gotta fix this. Hey, Frosty Winnipeg. All right, so I do have a new toy. I'm gonna show off. It's the Asus Zephyrus M. This thing is tremendous. Which I'm gonna review on the show. I'll talk about it a little bit. Hey, Greg. All right. My eyes are starting to go. Notes. Let's go to notes. I got my live read there. Ah, totally forgot this. Been battling YouTube and the browser lately. Uh-oh. Let me get Paul a link. All right. Got this going. I'm going to use this mic for a couple of weeks. I have a lot of computers here. I have too many around me.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Better call Paul. Paul might need to install Chrome. Yeah, so I'm gonna review this this Asus Zephyrus M GM501 that I got for my trip to Manchester.
Can you hear me? Andrew?
Close this out. Need that link. Need this link. Oh, I can't hear Paul. Hold on. Sorry. Hey, you there?
Yep.
There we go. Sorry. I didn't even know you were here. Are you on Chrome or are you on something else?
I'm on the new Edge.
Oh, and it works.
Yeah, they've already fixed that. That's good.
That is good.
Of course, it's got little. No, that's fine.
I got something here you might find interesting.
Okay.
You know what this is, Paul?
What is the name of that?
The Zephyrus, the Asus Zephyrus.
Okay.
Zephyrus
Good
M.
Is it a gaming PC?
It is, yeah. So I needed this for the Manchester trip that I'm taking for that event I'm covering. So I needed a like something I could produce an event on. Yeah, and this one apparently this is like what's recommended from vMix. So I'll show a little bit of it. I was actually impressed. I don't know how anybody can make that their everyday computer, but it's very impressive.
So Acer has a new line of computers that may be of interest to you.
Ah, what are they?
It's basically like gaming class PCs, but made for creative, creative professionals.
Laptops or just like a whole line?
Noise and... What's that?
It's a whole line of PCs or laptops?
Both.
Oh, okay. Let me see. We could talk about it on the show. I'm interested in that. Obviously, I was a bad boy last night, Paul, and I am very sluggish today. Not as bad as you were when you were in New York, but I'm not feeling great. Let me approve this guy. Sorry. What do I want to see here? We got this going. Did we tweet this out, guys? Did I tweet this out? I think I did.
I'm getting like freezes. I wonder if that's related to the stupid browser I'm using.
On just me or you? You too?
I don't know. Is
the audio freezing as well?
My video is frozen. What's that?
Is the audio freezing as well?
I don't know. The video is frozen a couple of times.
Yeah, so you're fine here. I don't think you've frozen on my end.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, that's kind of good. If we have any issues, we can reconnect. I'm good to start. How about you? All right, boys and girls. Is it freezing to you right now if I do this? Or is this not choppy?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Because I am having issues with my WebRTC, with my NDI that I sent to this one so I can monitor. That is a little choppy, and I wonder if that has to do with the Wi-Fi. I need to do a serious rebuild of my Wi-Fi here, so we'll talk about it. All right, I'm good to go. We got ads, we got ads, we got ads. Okay. All right, boys and girls, this is tweeted out. John, if you could tweet out on GFQ, that'd be awesome. I would love you. And we could get started in 3, 2, and 1. What the Tech is brought to you by Rocket Loans, part of the Quicken Loans family of companies. Offers personal loans from $2,000 to $35,000 by visiting rocketloans.com/whatthetech. That's rocketloans.com/whatthetech. However, Find a domain name for your idea. Go to hover.com/WTT and get 10% off your first purchase. Again, that's hover.com/WTT. Hover, domain names for your ideas. Everybody, welcome to What the Tech. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by Mr. Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
Pretty good.
What kind of mug was that? What kind of cup is that?
What do you mean? It's just a giant cup.
Oh, okay.
It's
a Red Sox cup.
Sorry, world champion Boston Red Sox.
You may have your cup, but I have my flag.
Okay.
I have my Mets flag here in the studio. Guys, this is What the Tech. If this is the first time you're tuning in, I know a lot of new people have been discovering the show recently. I guess we got featured on a podcast application. I forgot which one. Somebody sent me an email, and they found the show, and they absolutely loved it. We talk about technology, but we also have a conversation around technology. We don't just report the news. We have real reactions to things that we discuss, which I think is always important, Paul, when people kind of have a real discussion around what they're talking about. Paul, if people don't know who you are, if you were to introduce yourself to people, what would you say? What would be your intro?
What's my elevator pitch from me?
Yeah.
Usually what happens is someone will say, someone will ask me what I do for a living, and I say, I'm a writer. And then they get really interested. And I said, no, I just write about computers and technology. And then they get a lot less interested. Like, I'm not a Stephen King kind of writer.
We've spoken about that in the past. I know you're a big Stephen King fan. And would you ever write a fiction?
No, not in a long time. Not since I was a kid. I used to do some kind of humor stuff when I was a teenager. But no, not as an adult.
Yeah. Guys, we do have so much to talk about, and I also have a little review that I'm going to do at the end of the show. I'm going to show you guys, for the people watching, this laptop that I just got. It's an Asus. It's an Asus gaming laptop. I'll go into detail at the end of the show, and we'll talk about this, but I had to get this for my trip to Manchester, and I needed a real gaming laptop, something that could actually do some video production, and I was told by multiple people that this is the one to get. Now, I haven't done any heavy lifting on this thing because I got it last night, but I'll do a little preview of it before we wrap up with the show at the end. Paul, you are here today. We are going to do our bonus show at the end of this show because Paul is available for once on a Thursday to record that. So you go to patreon.com/whatthetech. You can fund us there. Paul, I have so much to talk to you about, and I know the big story this week is obviously the Samsung Galaxy Fold having all these terrible display issues. Even friends of mine that I know are not, how do I say this without insulting people? Animals when it comes to reviewing hardware. They actually treat it as if it's theirs. They have even encountered issues with the display. So let's go into detail. What's going on with the displays? Now, a lot of the problems came from the review units they sent out to people, right?
Yep. Well, all of them so far. I mean, that's what they are.
Them, yeah.
No one has these yet, other than reviewers.
So the official, I guess, excuse or what they're saying is that this was an earlier pre-production model, and they're now investigating these issues. Now, this is too many problems to have, right?
Yeah, there are too many different problems, for one thing. It's not one thing that a few people have seen. It's different things. It's all display related, of course, because the big innovation here is the folding display. But I was telling Brad this morning, for people in the Microsoft community, when we think back about a year and a half, or maybe it was 2.5 years ago now, whenever the first Surface Book and Surface Pro 4 had come out, that whatever year that was in October, those devices were horribly unreliable. It led to Consumer Reports pulling their recommendation for Surface. It led to me coining the phrase Surface Gate to describe the problem. And Microsoft said exactly the same thing that Samsung is saying right now, which was, people like me who are reviewing them would go back to the company and say, hey, this thing's all screwed up. It doesn't, hot bags all the time. You close it, it never goes to sleep. It heats up. The display won't connect correctly or disconnect correctly. And they said, "Yeah, no, that's okay. It's just a pre-production unit. We'll send you another one," which is what they've said to these reviewers with Samsung. And then they sent us another one, and it had the same problem. That entire device generation was completely screwed up. There was just endemic hardware problems. And I guess the fear that I have for Samsung is that this is what's happening to them. When you say something like, well, reviewers were sent early pre-production units. I think a lot of people kind of nod their heads and say, "Yeah, that makes sense." That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. You give reviewers the hardware. Like, yeah, it may have come off of a batch a little bit earlier than the stuff, but if they're selling this thing to like actual individuals on April 26th, which is what, less than 2 weeks from
8
today?
days. 8 days away?
8
Yeah.
days. Okay. So yeah, it's like just a week ago. 10 day. We'll say a 10-day difference between the day that Samsung shipped the device to reviewers and the day that Samsung is shipping the device to customers. I'm sorry, that's the same hardware. There is no difference. And there's a problem. This is a problem. So, Samsung has said that, they're going to investigate it. They're taking the units back. They're going to see what happened. But, they've been testing this thing for months internally. Are you telling me that they didn't experience any of this stuff? I think they did. I think that coating that's on the screen, which, some of the reviewers have peeled off because it just looks like a screen protector, was in fact added last minute by Samsung
So
in an
wait,
attempt to
but
overcome some of the more obvious problems.
so the thing about
Um,
the screen protector for some people who don't know what's going on, obviously there's a
yeah,
multitude of issues, but one of the main problems
yeah,
is
yeah,
that so there is a piece of film. So it's a screen. I mean, a screen
well,
protector,
like a screen
like
protector.
on any phone. You're
Yeah,
not supposed to remove this. And on the back of the phone, it actually tells you, not the back of the phone, I apologize. On I guess on the packaging, it tells you do not remove. Attention. Main screen includes a special protective layer. Peeling off the protective layer or using any adhesive on the main screen, such as a screen protector or stickers, may cause damage. So a lot of reviewers did not see this or were not aware of this, and they peeled this thing off and they broke the screen. Other ones have had, I guess, it's almost like when like you have a loose ribbon cable and your LCD kind of a line goes right down the middle. That's what's happening at the scene where a line is going down the middle of the scene. And these are reviewers, Paul. Imagine when it goes up in the wild, right? Where people really treat their
it's
phones
normal
like
people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These are sophisticated device gadget type reviewers, who, probably have a thousand different devices in their, parents' bedroom or wherever they live. But yeah, I, I I'm really nervous about this, and I think that even though what Samsung has said is they have no plans to delay the launch. I would be shocked if they didn't delay the launch, and if they don't delay the launch, I think they're going to have huge problems. Not huge like exploding Note 7 huge, but um, I think they rushed this thing out. I think they wanted to be first with the folding display. I think that a big part of the Samsung ego is around their ability to innovate in displays in particular, that this is their last kind of dying gasp before they give up the championship to the Chinese. And
interesting.
yeah, because one of the things that came out around Mobile World Congress timeframe was Samsung wasn't the only company releasing a folding screen handset. Samsung's design was was the least interesting of all of them, and was the least kind of um, not complete, but the least refined looking, I would say, of the designs we've seen so far. So I
Huawei being a
yeah,
main
Huawei's
one,
the big one. Huawei's
stunningly
the big one.
beautiful. I mean,
Yep,
beautiful device.
yep,
And Huawei, by the way, is not even. I mean, there's a whole plethora of even unknown Chinese OEMs making these,
right,
bendable
right.
displays. Uh,
Yeah,
this is a
this is a
shift, and
problem.
like you said, Samsung jumped to do this. Now, you said this won't be as big as the Note issue. I think this is.
Well, no,
Uh,
but here's why. It's not that it's not as serious of a hardware problem, right? Because it's the same kind of hardware problem in a way. No, last time batteries were exploding and catching on fire, right?
yeah,
Remember with the Note 7, Note 7 was a mainstream device that went out to all kinds of people. they were banned from airplanes, right? Because people were worried that one of these was gonna explode on a plane and take down the plane. There were instances where remember at the time, it was like, we were talking about, looking over and seeing someone using a Note 7 next to you on the plane,
Yeah,
and
well,
how you
I
would, like,
would
take that person down like they were a terrorist,
listen,
because
I
what
would
they were
jump on
doing
that.
was dangerous, right? Well, this is not a problem like that, right? The Galaxy Fold isn't gonna take down an airplane, it's not gonna explode, but it looks like an endemic hardware problem. It's a $2,000 phone that's gonna limit its market acceptance, naturally. Samsung also, cut off sales. By the way, I thought that was kind of interesting. The day before this happened, the big story about the Fold was that Samsung announced they had sold out of pre-orders. What does that mean? Like, sold out? I mean, okay, so what does that mean? They sold 12,000 of them? 1,700? No one knows what the number is. I wonder if that wasn't tied to this reliability issue, which they, in fact, were already seeing internally, and they decided to halt, pre-order sales, to get ahead of this. I really do think this is a huge problem for them. And it's at a tough time. Like I said, they're right on the cusp of losing their grasp on the smartphone industry. I think this is it. I think this is how they go down.
I think you got to look at the market right now and where we're at right now. Innovation has kind of slowed down to the point that we need a company to be able to pretty much just put
Well,
something new on the
listen,
market.
it's
It's
funny.
something different on
Sorry,
the market. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just, yeah, innovation has slowed down. Okay, but on the other hand, there is incredible innovation to be had around these folding screen devices. There's incredible innovation to be found around photography, right? Low light photos, optical zoom. Those things are all occurring right now. They're just not occurring at Samsung. They're occurring at Huawei. And so I would say that innovation has slowed down at Samsung, right? We're all kind of familiar with the fact that not Google, I'm sorry, Apple proceeds very slowly with their iPhone updates. They're always kind of a step behind when it comes to putting out new features. But the kind of implicit promise that you get from Apple if you're a customer of that company is that whenever they do dive in, whether it's with wireless charging or advanced photo features or curved displays or the bezel-less displays like they're sort of doing now, they're gonna get it right, right? Like, Apple at least will get it right. Samsung, they've always been kinda spotty when it comes to this stuff. Like, they're innovative and have been innovative, especially in displays, but I think they have tried too hard to push forward, and they're running into walls, and I think it's over, and I like I said, there's this problem coming out of China that they're not gonna be able to beat back. I think we've talked about this in the past, but, um if you look at the DxO Mark stuff or you look at any legitimate review of like the Huawei P30 Pro, that thing kicks the living crap out of everything camera
Yeah.
wise,
The camera is stunning on
including
that
the
phone.
including the Google stuff.
Have you played around with I mean, just the zoom in ability on this thing?
So I don't have a P30 Pro. I'm
You don't
hoping
have
to
the
be able to get one. I'll actually probably just buy one. One of the things I found, what I have is a Huawei Mate 20 Pro, right, which is they basically have 2 different lines of high-end phones, and so in the spring, they do the P series, and then in the fall, they do the Mate series. So this was new as of last fall. It's basically the same camera system in the P30 Pro minus the optical zoom, right?
yeah.
And I don't know that the things I've seen from the P30 Pro low light look better than what I can achieve on this phone. And so my experience is that in low light, the Google Pixel phones come out ahead. It is very good, but they do come out ahead. And from all of the reviews I've seen, a lot of them do side by side, which is really helpful. The P30 Pro comes ahead in low light as well. So it's superior low light, optical zoom, and then that photography thing you and I have talked about, where hyper HDR effects, if that's what you want, if you want that kind of stuff, it excels at that as well. So just general photos um, you know, tend to come out really nice.
So,
It's
I was blown away on that optical zoom.
yeah.
I mean, and obviously we're gonna see more of this come on the market, in the next,
Did you see how they did it, by the way? Did we talk about this?
no, no, no.
I love this. So, one of the problems with a smartphone is that they're really thin, right? So if you look like this is the Huawei phone, you can see it's like it's oops, it's thin like any smartphone. If you look at a point and click kind of camera that has optical zoom, you'll see that the lens telescopes out from the body.
Hmm.
So, how do you do that in a device that's this thin? They put it in the device. The telescoping part of the camera is inside the device, and then at the end is a mirror that angles so that it shoots out. So it works like a periscope,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
It is telescoping, but it's doing it inside the body. You can't see it, so it doesn't extend out, and that means you don't have to have a camera bump, or at least a giant camera bump like you would, or some giant lens thing, and the mechanical nature of that, and all the problems that could occur with dust and whatever. Not to mention the fact that just the thinness of the body wouldn't allow for enough concentric rings of expansion for this to make any sense at all. And so they've come up with like a really, when you hear that, you're like, yeah, that would work. Like that makes tons
Yeah.
of sense. Like that's really cool, and it does work.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. And listen, I think other manufacturers are going to incorporate this, but the fact that they're moving so fast, Huawei and other companies as well,
Oh
not just
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Huawei, are moving so fast. This is why Samsung had to release something like this. And where do you
I
think
think
they
so.
go from here? Obviously we have a lot of information today, and there's more that's going to come out. Where do you think this goes for them?
I don't. I really. I don't have high hopes for this company. It's really interesting because there are other examples of this happening to companies, right? RIM, BlackBerry, it happened. Nokia, right, which was never a big force in the United States, but worldwide that absolutely happened to them as well. Where there was a point, 2007 to 2009, something like that, where you could go find public statements from Nokia where they were saying the iPhone was nothing to worry about. Anyone can make a touchscreen device, blah, 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 blah. And then it kind of collapsed. I always thought with Samsung, they always had these differentiators that I thought were important. And, recently it's been like the curved display stuff. But the new Huawei's, including the one I have the exact same curved display. Like they've figured that part of it out. And so, if that stuff is important to you, there are other phone makers that are doing it. So, like, what could they do? I mean, the problem is they can't really do anything.
Yeah, they're
These Chinese
limited.
phone makers are going to sell superior products for less money, basically, right? I mean, the only thing Samsung has going for them is the only thing that's Apple has going for them right now, which is two things. Kind of inertia. They have some customer base. They do have certainly have like loyal customers, whatever. People have had good experiences with their products in the past and would consider them first the next time around. And then the fact that the the Huawei stuff isn't sold in the United States. So yeah, other than like Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a temporary condition, and that is also very US specific. And I worldwide, I mean, a year from now, the conversation I think we're going to be having is Huawei's number one, Samsung is number two, Apple's number three, and then the rest of the top five is other Chinese companies no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
And over the 5 years or whatever that comes after that, those other Chinese companies may shift into the top three as well. I feel like this is inevitable.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't
Listen,
think they can
I
do
think
anything,
this is a
Samsung.
I think this is a great example. And then we got to move on to other thing, but this is a really good example of the pendulum kind of swinging now, where it's in a year or two, less than a year. I'm predicting less than a year. This market is going to be very different, very
Yeah.
very different as
Yep.
to who's the king and who's not, and sale numbers and things like that, because we have kind of hit the
Dude.
saturation market. Apple's suffering from the lack of having to upgrade every 2 years mentality,
Yeah.
and Samsung kind of the same thing too, where people were
Yep.
jumping to every 2 years to upgrade their phone, are now maybe saying, you know what, maybe I don't need to pay that extra $40 or $45 a month if I could get
Sure.
by on this for a while. Obviously, the the progression, like right now I'm on a 7 Plus as my iPhone, and I'm on a Galaxy Note 9, Galaxy S9, but the progression isn't urgent enough for me to have to update every 2 years. I can wait.
Well, it's also just the way like a market changes, right? You and I have often discussed this with TVs, like smart TVs, like Vizio, and how Vizio kind of upended the TV market. It kind of removed Sony as a thing in the TV market. Remember, Sony was So what was the Sony premier brand, the high end brand that Sony had? Do you remember
Bravia,
for
Bravia.
Bravia? Yep. Sony Bravia TVs were like the ultimate. Like, that was what you were going to get. You could walk. I walked into a Costco, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and there was a TV. It's like bigger than the ones out in my living room. It's HDR10 and blah blah blah. It's all this stuff. It's amazing. QLED. It's like 689 bucks or something. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, things change. But I always think back personally, like, when I was going to buy my first car in 1985, my I ended up buying a used car, but my dad took me over to a Hyundai dealership, which was brand new in the United States at the time, and because he wanted to see what that was all about. And it was a little hunk of crap. It was a
Yeah.
ridiculous little but I will never forget the guy opening the hood, which was like paper thin, and he goes, "Look, we know Hyundai's an unknown brand. It was a South Korean company, which, in the 80s was kind of like a Chinese company in the 70s. Like, nobody wanted anything to do with this."
Yeah.
And he said, "No," he goes, But you don't have anything to worry about. It has a Mitsubishi engine in it." And my dad and I looked at each other. We're like, "A Mitsubishi engine? What does that even? What is that? Is that good quality? We don't even. No one even
M-
heard of such a thing."
Mitsubishi Motors, not necessarily known for their high standard, except for one. The Evo is probably their
Okay,
most
but I mean,
reliable car they
at
ever
the
made.
time, it was like
Yeah.
you're saying nonsense. Like, it didn't mean anything to me. Today, I would say Hyundai is probably a very um, well, they're certainly established automaker and probably pretty well respected, right? They have the whole Genesis luxury brand. I believe that there is a corporate relationship with Kia, and those cars are really well regarded.
Yeah, they're
But in
correct. Yeah, yeah.
1985, actually, it would have been 1987. It doesn't matter, whatever it was, but 80, 85 or 87, 80 doesn't matter. One of those years. Um, they were nobody, and so I know to a lot of people listening to this, even people who are kind of like tech people, they're like, Huawei, Oppo, Xiaomi. Like, what are you talking about? You just bought an Asus computer,
I did.
in 2003. Asus was, I believe, at that time just starting to get into selling their computers directly to consumers. Before that, they were an ODM, meaning they were a
Yeah.
company that made computer designs that they sold to big computer makers, who then resold them as their own products. And so
So it would
a lot of
be
the
I
Mhm.
believe that they were a great example of this is the white label, like the off
Yeah, that's
label
exactly right. Yep.
QVC products like laptops.
Yeah.
You would
Yeah.
actually get them saying Asus and nobody knew what they were, but they were the
Every Dell
same as
computer
yeah.
sold in the early 2000s was an Asus. Like, you just don't know that. I mean, they were all made by Asus. So, things change. Not that Asus ended up taking over the world, but they obviously, they created a kind of new kind of business for themselves. The companies that were making or that are making iPhones for Apple and whatever are no doubt taking those expertises that they have now and applying them to their own products in the future or maybe to other companies' products. I mean, this is what happens. And so, the fact that Samsung is the world's biggest maker of smartphones today is interesting, but it's a South Korean company, by the way. Um, they could be replaced, and I think they're going to be. I mean, I just see this kind of change a lot in the world over time, and I think we're witnessing it, and this is going to be a big change
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
agree with you. I think this is shifting. Hey, before we continue, I want to take a moment and talk about our great sponsors today, and that's Rocket Loan. Listen, I had this bought for me, my this laptop that I got, the Asus, because I needed to produce an event in Manchester, which we'll talk about at the end of the show. But to kind of sometimes you're like, I don't want to spend the $2,000 that I got from my bank account. You know what? That's why Rocket Loan is here. They make it super easy to get loans from $2,000 to $35,000. Checking your offer doesn't affect your credit. It's like some of those other guys when you do it. It's simple and secure online process, pre-approved offers within seconds, and no prepayment penalties. You can pay it off at any time, and it's rocket fast. This is part of a Quicken Loans family of companies, and this is a great service that they offer. Whether you want to pay off a credit card bill or you want to make a important purchase for your house, maybe a new couch, maybe a new living room, hey, maybe a new TV, or you're planning on doing some sort of renovation, some home improvement, this is the place to go. To get more information, go to rocketloans.com/whatthetech. That's rocketloans.com/whatthetech. All loans are made by Cross River Bank, member FDIC. I want to thank them for supporting the show. Um, where do you want to go from here, Paul? Oh, you know what? I know what I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
What's going on with these earpods? What's
um,
going on here? A Surface earbud?
yeah. It's impossible for any company to announce earbuds today without anyone saying, "Oh, they're trying to compete with Apple." I think Microsoft understands that they're not competing with Apple, right?
So
Um,
let me just start saying this. People are like,
yeah,
I got a lot of messages from people saying like, "What is Microsoft doing making earpods? They're in the headphone market." I'm like, "Yes, they are. They've had Surface headphones for a while,
yeah.
and they're like
So,
$350 those things."
yep, yep. Why anyone would buy headphones from Microsoft is unclear to me. you know, there are companies that excel at this particular kind of thing. I don't know. Um, but whatever. There's no reason for Microsoft not to expand the brand and create an ecosystem of devices. There are certainly fans of the Surface series that would buy into this kind of stuff. When Microsoft announced the Surface headphones last year, I remember sitting in the audience listening to Panos Panay describe the rationale behind this because he was saying, look, this isn't for gamers, although it could be used that way. It's not for typical consumers out in the world listening to their, I almost said Walkmans, to their, phones or whatever, although people will use it that way. But Surface is a business brand. It's a productivity brand, and he said this is for those open workspace type offices where everyone's kind of in a room together. There are no walls, and you need quiet because sometimes people are talking on the phone or whatever, and you just want to not have to be in the middle of all that. And yeah, I'm sure there is a need for that kind of thing, but I know from my own experience, I've seen it. I mean, the company I used to work for had that kind of an open office experience. I would go out to Colorado and I'd walk around and think about how horrible that was. Now I could never do this, but I'd have to wear headphones. And a lot of those people did have those big over the head kind of cans or over the ear, type cans. And I don't like those kind of things. I've worn the Bose noise canceling headphones on planes. I've had different versions of them, the giant ones, and then the smaller ones that just go over the ear. But they're heavy. They make my ears sweat. And if I had to wear one of those things like every single day, all day long, I would have a huge problem with that, and I thought to myself at the time, what they should have done is made earbuds instead, like, the type that pop into your ear, not don't just kinda hang there, but actually, you know, provide some sort of natural noise cancellation
Yeah.
as part of it. That was my take on it. So, the fact that they're actually making those as well, to me, makes sense. I don't mean to say they shouldn't do both. I think having choice is a good idea. Certain people will prefer those other kind of headphones. It's fine. Um, I don't think they're gonna be a big deal. I don't think they're gonna ever threaten AirPods in any meaningful way. I honestly, I would say if you're a phone guy, it sounds like I've never tried them, but the Galaxy Buds or whatever they're called seem like a viable option. I have, like a Beat not the new Beats ones that are truly wireless, but I have the Beats one that have, like, the wire that, kinda goes between them. You can see here, like, these are technically wireless, but, they do what I'm talking about, which is, pop in your ear and block a little bit of ambient sound naturally. Like, to me, that just seems, like it makes sense. Like, that stuff is out there.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. The Surface
Mhm.
now they have these ear pods. Obviously, it's going to be compared to the iPhone, to the Apple EarPods, or what Google's doing,
Yeah,
or what Samsung is doing. Everybody's in the game, but everybody that's in the game has a product to go along with it as a companion.
right.
Who's actually going to purchase these to use with their phone? you know,
Well, I mean,
Not saying that they're going to be terrible or anything. And by the way, a lot of credit to Brad, obviously, for this story.
yeah.
He really did a home run with this. I'm just curious as to, okay, well, I have an iPhone or I have a Samsung. Why would I purchase this over the one that's in my
Yeah,
ecosystem?
that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, obviously, people use, the same set of headphones with different devices, and so if you're a multi-device person, you have a laptop and you have a phone. Maybe you've had a positive experience with the Surface stuff and you like the look of it, you like the colors. I mean, honestly, I think one of the biggest issues with that set of earbuds and also with the headphones is that they are gray. They're
Yeah,
kind of bland looking.
yeah.
It's like a bondo colored car. Um,
Can they start
I
giving
think
this
there's like
away with Surfaces, you know?
yeah, okay, it's fine. I mean, whatever. Some people I'm sure love it, but I think colors would have been a nice touch. Um, the Beat stuff, I think those come in colors. I got the white ones, but I think they have black and different color schemes, and that's great. But yeah, who's going to buy this? I don't. A Surface fan, they're out there for
I
sure.
guess so. I guess
Yeah.
so.
I don't know if
Maybe
you
if they had a
don't. Some
phone.
people associate with brands. Like if you're an Apple guy, the iPod, AirPods, whatever they're called. I'm sure they make tons of sense.
Yeah, but I mean,
Um,
but in mobile, who's a Surface guy in mobile, you know?
Well, it's
You
not
have a
in mobile, it's
Surface.
just you're a Surface
Yeah.
guy, and that is maybe the more meaningful brand to you than the phone using. Because I think a lot of Microsoft guys are using Android phones, and at that point, it's like, it doesn't really matter which Android phone you're using. If you're all in, you can put a bunch of Microsoft stuff on there, including changing the user interface, right, with the Microsoft launcher.
I say this all the time. I'm almost convinced that Microsoft is gonna get back into the phone game, but, with Android. This is
Yeah, sure. So
why they can, and I think they would have a pretty if there was a Surface phone that ran Android, I might be more inclined to purchase that over a Samsung next year. We saw Microsoft do a good job with cameras.
so
They
here's the
have
thing.
obviously priorities.
They're never gonna be back in phones like they were before, right? That's never happening. That required a worldwide distribution, manufacturing, R&D, whatever kind of infrastructure that's all gone now, right? And so there are cheaper ways to get into the phone business, like the way that HMD licensed the Nokia brand from Nokia, and they're making phones on behalf of this company. And Microsoft could use HMD or a company like HMD, maybe. I always got the feeling like when Microsoft started selling phones from from their own stores, including Samsung phones, by the way. There was briefly this notion of like a Microsoft like Samsung phone, right? And Samsung came out and said, "Yeah, that's not happening." But it would be interesting if they could partner with some kind of a handset maker, maybe one of the smaller ones like OnePlus or something, and do an addition of an existing device that ran the Microsoft launcher and had the Microsoft software pre-installed. And it would just be one of those things where if it didn't do very well, it wouldn't matter because it wasn't a huge investment to go into something like that. Um, I maybe something like that, but the phones are such a low margin business, and when you just look at Android phones, they're almost like a negative margin business. And there's no real advantage to Microsoft where you could say, well, they make their money in these other places. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but they're making that money now in other places. They don't need the phone. The phone would just add a negative, to the finances. Like, why bother? People are already using whatever Android phones they use, whatever iPhones they use, and Microsoft software runs there. So what, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see a big I don't see phone. I don't think a phone thing's gonna happen.
You don't think so? Interesting
No.
though. But earbuds are
It comes
happening.
up a lot.
Earbuds are
But
happening.
earbuds are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but earbuds, think about it, like headphones, from an investment perspective, nothing, it's nothing. So if these things kinda come and go in a year, there's no harm, there's no foul. When you drop a phone platform along with an entire range of actual phones,
That's a
and you
major
have
change.
tens of millions of users, maybe hundreds, that's a huge problem. If you make headphones for a couple of years and then you stop making headphones because it's like, yeah, we didn't really sell that many. It's not, whatever. Yes, the Microsoft guys are going to bitch and moan because that's what they always do. But I don't think it impacts the world in any meaningful way. It's okay.
Yeah. Before we go on, I want to thank another one of our great sponsors, and that's Hover. Hover.com/WTT. You get 10% off your first purchase of your domain name. Now, I'm a big domain name guy. I talk about this constantly, how I constantly buy domain names. And Hover is my go to for domain names. And the reason why is because, first of all, the unbelievable service, which you've spoken about, but I don't have to deal with the upsell. You're buying a domain name and you're out of there. One, two, three. It's super quick, super easy. And they also make transferring your domain names to them very easy as well. You buy the domain name for a couple dollars, and next thing you know, from those other guys, you're checking out at $85 because they added this fee and that fee and this private registration and that private this. with Hover, it's all included. Your domain name is it's private, so people can't kind of search you and essentially DDoS you and get all your information or dox you. It's all private automatically. So that's in the price of the domain name, which is amazing. Go to hover.com/WTT, get 10% off your first domain name purchase. Go there, support them. We absolutely love Hover, and you will too. So where do I go from here, Paul? What do I talk to you about? I want to talk about that tablet, that laptop that I got here.
Yep.
Microsoft diskless Xbox One arriving May 7th, 249.99. Not a bad price at all.
Yeah, but it's still people are, because like I just said, Microsoft guys, we complain a lot. There actually have been complaints about the price on that thing. Technically speaking, an Xbox One S costs $300, right? So this is $50 cheaper. What you're not getting is the optical drive, and that's the only difference. Otherwise, they're completely identical. There's no additional new features or specification changes or anything like that. But the reality is, any Xbox console is always on sale, like always on sale. And so the Xbox One S is typically on sale for about $250. It was on sale this week at Amazon for $232, I think the price was. And so the argument is like, well, why would anyone spend 250 on this thing that doesn't have a drive when you could get a drive for the same price or less? And you may never need it for games, but you might want to pop in a DVD or a Blu-ray or something. And I hear you. But apparently what Microsoft has said is that this thing will always be 50 bucks less. And so the next time they have an Xbox One sale, which by my calendar will be anytime in the next 1 to 3 days, it's very likely that the Xbox One S all digital edition will likewise be on sale. And so, you know, we should see this thing for approximately $200 on sale sometime soon. So, yeah, I agree. It's a good price, but I wouldn't rush out to buy it now. I'm just saying, like, Xbox is on sale all the time. So wait for the sale and you could probably get it for a lot less.
Since we're on the topic of, I don't know how my mic muted. That was so weird. We're on the topic of these consoles. Sony kind of put
Yeah.
out the specs for their next generation. What do we know for this? 8K,
Yeah. So well,
obviously.
I'll tell you one thing we know is they announced it on the day that they knew Microsoft was announcing their new console. So
Yeah,
kudos to them for kind of cock blocking Microsoft.
yeah,
It's like Microsoft's talking about a new version of their previous generation console, not even their current gen console, and Sony comes out and talks about the next one. So that's pretty funny. Um, what we know about it is they're talking 8K graphics, backwards compatibility with PS4 games, which is really smart. AMD based, which is also true of Xbox, by the way. And we'll see. I think the baseline to expect for the next gen of consoles is going to be two things. One, that Microsoft and Sony need to be in lockstep with where they're at. There's been some weird back and forth over which one is the more powerful console in this gen. I think with the original version of Xbox One and PS4, PS4 came out ahead. But now that we've moved forward to the 4K consoles, Microsoft is ahead. And I think with the same basic architecture, which is what I believe they're going to have, uh, it would be great for developers and easier on gamers if these things were very close to each other. I bet they're going to be. But the other thing, and this is maybe the more important bit, is the current gen 4K consoles are a bit of a stretch, right? So you can get 4K and you can get 60 frames a second, but you don't often get those things together. If it's a demanding game like a modern 3D shooter, what you're going to get is lower resolution graphics in order to keep the frame rate up. And so I think the goal here for the next gen needs to be true 4K, 60 frames a second all the time, no matter what the game is. I think that has to be the baseline. And I
yeah,
would expect that the PS5 and then whatever the next Xbox is called would both meet that requirement.
yeah. I thought it was really funny, like you said, that it came out on the same day that,
I
that
mean,
they're
but they're
making an
such dicks.
announcement.
No, but I mean, good for them, right? That's smart. It's
You got to
good.
be aggressive.
Yeah,
Also, Pixel 3a launch.
yeah,
Some hints are being dropped about this.
yeah. It's leaked all over the place, including on Google's on site, which is hilarious. Basically, what this is a mid-market version of the Pixel 3, meaning a Snapdragon 670 processor versus an 855. I believe it's going to have the same camera system, so that's Very interesting. Same basic body, right? So that it will look very similar. There's two models, the A and the AXL. So the devices themselves should look almost identical to the more expensive versions, but of course they'll be less expensive, right? One interesting little thing here, and this kind of blows me away. One of the big complaints about the Pixel 3 and the 3 XL, which came out last October, November, was that they only came with 3 gigabytes of RAM. And they immediately ran into performance problems around multitasking where you would switch out of, and if, in fact, I experienced this. I would be playing audio. So let's say, I think it was Audible, but it could have been a podcast app or a music app. And then I would switch to the camera app to take a photo of something because I was out on a walk, and the music would stop playing because there wasn't enough RAM for it to handle both of those things at one time. Now they fixed the memory management so that actually works even with 3 gigs of RAM. But these lower end devices are actually going to ship with 4 gigabytes of RAM, which I will say in today's world is probably the minimum that you would want out of a modern smartphone. A lot of the Samsung and Huawei and other phones are shipping with eight, 6, 8, even I think 10 or 12 gigs of RAM. Like you're seeing crazy amounts of RAM. So I think Google is trying to get ahead of that problem, although they kind of screwed over the people who bought like the more expensive phones because those actually have less RAM.
Is there any news on the Pixel 4 when that announcement will come?
Yeah, same thing as last year, October
Yeah.
timeframe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably
I'm
gonna have a, bezel-less design in display front camera like you see today on the Samsungs, that kinda thing.
yeah. So I kind of want to talk about this laptop a little bit here because
Yeah.
it's interesting. You recently had you kind of got to see some of these higher end gaming laptops, right? From Acer.
Yeah, and also that new line I was talking about. So
Yeah.
Acer last week, I was in New York, on a whirlwind tour of New York, like not planes, trains, and automobiles, but, buses, cabs, and
I didn't see
ferries.
you at all last week, by the way,
No, no one
because of
did.
this. Yeah.
I was literally taken up by this event the entire time I was there. Um, so yeah, they updated a bunch of their computers. And they have computers for, they have Chromebooks, they have consumer computers, gaming computers, business computers, and then they have this new thing, right? And so I thought that was kind of interesting. They're people who follow the PC industry know that sales have fallen now for 7 years. They probably leveled off. Like I think hopefully this year we'll see an end to the falling sales. But the PC market today is about two-thirds the size that it was in 2011. So as a PC maker, whether you're a big one like HP or Lenovo or a kind of a smaller one like Acer, what you need to do is look for these sub-markets where the margins get higher and the profits are actually there, right? Because you're not going to profit off of the $300 throwaway plastic PC. You're going to profit off of a premium PC.
Sure.
And so there have been like literally luxury computers, like the Surface computers fall in this category, the MacBook Pros fall into this category, and companies are trying to emulate Apple in that space. And then there are gaming computers. Those have been the two big markets that have been profitable for PC makers. But what Acer found out was that two things with gaming PCs. One was that the people who buy gaming PCs and actually use them to play games also, of course, use them to do other things. And they've actually gone back to Acer and said, "Hey, we do use this for gaming, but there's this other functionality that we would like, and we'd like it if these computers were a little bit better for that, productivity kind of work." And like that's kind of interesting. But the other group, by the way, is the group is includes you because you just bought this Acer computer for the
Asus.
exact
I
same
bought an
reason.
Asus.
Asus, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
for the exact same reason as these other as Acer made this Concept D thing, which is this: they had people who were not gamers who came to Acer and said, "Look, we want to buy a computer that has these performance attributes because we need to do engineering work or 3D or video rendering or whatever it is. We're never going to play games. But the only computers you sell that meet our needs are these gaming computers,
And they're
which have these like
bulky and they're
giant
ugly.
fans. Yeah, they have
Yeah.
like 3 hours of battery life. You know, and they're like, look, what we want is a computer that has that power, but doesn't look obnoxious like a gaming computer and doesn't necessarily cost $4,000 like a MacBook Pro. And so they came up with this thing called Concept D, and it's a series of, it's not just like a one-off thing. This is what is interesting. It's a whole series of computers, And so they have desktop computers and laptops. They have displays. They have other peripherals. So they kind of span price ranges and needs, different sizes, with screens and so forth. And the basic deal is like they try to get as close as possible to gaming PC class performance, but they always want to hit what they call the library quiet thermals, right? So that this
Yeah.
thing never sounds louder than a typical library. And I actually looked this up because they said it's 40. I think it was 40 decibels if I get that
40
number right off the
dB.
top of my head. 40 dB. If you look up library quiet, it's 40. It's 40 dB. And they said, look, obviously with the desktop computers, big tower with a bunch of stuff going on. If you're rendering video, yeah, it's going to be higher than 40 dB. But in normal running, it's 40 dB or lower, and laptops never exceed 40 dB. And they think that this is going to be a huge new market of premium computers. In fact, they think it's going to be so big that the gaming PC market will become a subset of that market for them at
Oh,
least.
interesting.
And I think they're onto something. I think, if you look at other PC, obviously Apple sells high-end computers. Okay, fine. But if you look at other PC makers, not gaming PCs, but if you look at their premium computers that are aimed at like creators, what you'll typically find is like one computer, like one kind of throwaway, one-off thing, weird thing in the corner. Like HP sells something called the Sprout, or Dell's has something called the Canvas, right? And they're just, or Microsoft, they're all expensive, but they have like Surface Studio, which is like a $3,000 computer or $2,000 computer. Um, their whole thing is like, look, we want this to be a line of products that spans, different price ranges. So not anybody, but anyone who actually needs, anyone who's a creator of some kind can afford to get into this market. So it's it. I think it's a. I think I think this is like it makes sense to me. Like I think this, it's one of those things. You sit in a press conference, you're like, yeah, 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 whatever. And as they're describing this, I was like, actually, this makes sense.
I think that there is a market. So here's the interesting thing. So here's what I
Yeah,
got. I'll show you. This is if people want the model. It's an Asus Zephyrus M.
great name.
Yeah, the Zephyrus.
Is it a
I had the
15-inch screen?
It's a 15-inch screen. So I mean
Yeah,
it's pretty, it's not that small. I got my smudges on here. But it is a beautiful laptop and it's thin if you think about it. If you look at
yeah,
the
yeah, for what
how
it
big
is.
this is. So what it does, which is interesting, for to get it this thin and for it to cool, when you open it, the bottom piece, the plate on the bottom opens along
Right,
with it. So I don't know if you could see
right,
that
right.
opening.
So it's not venting down, which is
So
often counterproductive, especially if you're laying on a bed, by the way,
yeah.
when all you're doing is heating it up. So
Yeah,
it's
so
giving you room to blow it out the back.
exactly, the sides and the back, mostly the back, which is interesting, but it's a beautiful laptop. I mean, it's stunning. It has a color RGB keyboard, so this changes. It's a matte finish on the display. It's a beautiful 1080p display, great refresh rate, 144 refresh
What
rate.
did you need this for? Like, why do
So
you need this kind of computer?
I need to produce an event from Manchester, and we hired somebody to do it. But I also would like a backup. If something happens, I could still use this and produce the event. And we're going to be doing some editing. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff on here. So I needed something that's portable and
Mhm.
can handle 1080p video production. And this is what has been recommended from the company that we use, vMix, for our video production. But it's also been recommended by a ton of other people to me as
Right,
one of
right.
the better gaming laptops on the market. That aesthetically, it's great. It's a great looking laptop, but it also, it gets the job done. It has Thunderbolt. It has I mean, essentially everything on this thing that you would want. But a 15-inch, this is 15-inch, and so is this. So is my Mac, and there is a
Yeah.
tremendous size difference
Okay.
for two. I mean, they're both 15-inch displays, and I'll
Right.
show you here. So if we were to
Yeah, yeah.
compare my Mac
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
this, I
but
mean,
so what's the difference though? What's going internally, right?
yeah,
What's the processor in that thing?
it's an i7 8770, I think.
8770. Is
Yeah,
that a U series or an H series?
it's a H series.
H series, so high performance part. And then
Yeah,
what about the graphics?
10
NVIDIA something
and
something.
NVIDIA 1070.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah. and it has
Now, what
G-Sync,
is the
so
MacBook Pro you have? That those guys come with like
Intel.
Radeon graphics of some kind,
Yeah,
right?
it's Intel and it's the AMD graphics, right? I believe. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's see.
I think so.
It's a Radeon Pro 555, and it's a 2
Mhm.
gig graphics card. This is an 8 gig graphics card,
Yeah,
also.
yeah, yeah.
And then it has integrated Intel 630 graphics. I don't know what processor this would be though. What processor is in these Macs? Which Intel chipset is it?
It depends on which one you have, but it could be it's probably I believe it's a U series, but I think if it's an i7, it's like a 6 core. I'm
It's an
just saying that. I
i7.
should
This
just look
one.
it up. It's an
Yeah,
i7, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, so it's probably it could be a hexa-core, I think.
yeah. This is no,
Let's
no,
look.
no. This one is a quad core. The one that I have. It's the
Quad-core.
quad core. Yeah. But either way, I mean, I haven't done any benchmark tests with this yet. But
Mhm.
I do want my brother to check it out because he plays games, and I'm like, just install something and see how it performs because I'm curious how it's going to perform gaming wise. But if I needed to use this as my everyday laptop, I could. Why would I want to carry this? I mean, it's big. It's pretty
Yeah, I mean, how
big.
much does that thing weigh?
Um,
5 pounds?
you know,
4 and a
not.
half?
I'm gonna tell you something. Not that much more than my Mac.
Interesting.
It's not that much. I mean, the weight. I mean, it's heavy, but the weight isn't the bigger
Yeah.
problem here. It's the size. It's a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
when you look at it. So the keyboard, Paul, you would love this keyboard. The keyboard's not bad because it
Right.
has a nice throw to it. It's a little bit
Mhm.
thicker. I think where you're the reason why it's so big is the has a numeric pad on the side,
Yeah.
which makes sense if you're gaming. You kind of want that.
Yeah, I don't
The,
I can't stand numeric keypads on laptops, but yes, if you're a gamer for
the
sure.
trackpad is horrendous, but most people that are purchasing this, it's good
Yeah.
enough. Let me just say, it's good enough, but it's not a to their defense, most people that are purchasing this to play games are not using this trackpad.
Hmm.
The model, by the way, if you guys want, is the GM501GS. Another great model. So I mean, it's a great listen. It's a very heavy duty laptop. It'll
Yep.
do a lot of essentially everything you need it to do. The cooling innovation on this is something that they gloat about on how the air comes in and out. So I'm curious to see how much of an advantage it actually gives you
Hmm.
because the bottom lifts as you
Yeah,
open it,
that's a good idea.
which is weird. I mean, I don't know anybody that would want to design their laptop like that, but obviously
Well,
they
no, but
had
you want
to.
it to look, you want the thing to run at max throughput, right? So heat is going to be an issue in a laptop. One of the new Acer gaming laptops, I don't know if you saw it, the keyboard and the trackpad pull forward, and the trackpad kind of angles down as it does that. And what that does is it leaves a giant area at the top under the screen with two big fans, and it can vent out of the top, and that lets you actually overclock the device because
Yeah.
the venting and the cooling is so much better.
So the new version of this doesn't have a trackpad. So this is from last year. The new one is the S model. But this is actually a little bit better because this one has G-Sync, which I want. But the other one, the trackpad is on the side where the numeric pad would be, and the keyboard is dropped down.
Yeah.
So it's it's bizarre that they have it that way. I got this because it was, like under $2,000, and it's a really heavy duty machine. But I am curious to see how much of the market this is going to change. Because these chipsets are getting better and more efficient. Is this good enough for somebody that's a heavy duty gamer?
Um, yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of a gamer you are. Obviously, a gaming laptop is going to appeal to people who bring that somewhere and they want to compete against other people somewhere in a big room or whatever. Or and then the people who are like students that want to game and do whatever. But like a I don't know. Obviously, in a desktop computer, you could have multiple graphics cards, even higher end processors. The cooling is so much more impressive. Um, I don't know. I mean, it's 1080p too. That's the other thing. I mean,
It is 1080p. That's that's
yeah,
that's that's
1080p.
part of the.
But, but a lot of gamers, depending on your budget, they would take the lower res, bump up the frame rate, graphics quality, et cetera, et cetera. It's probably still fine. I mean, I don't know. I'm not one of those guys, Andrew. I'm not. I turn on my Xbox and it works.
And it works.
You know,
And that's
I
what you
like
need
that.
at the end of the day. That's what you
Yeah.
kind of want at
Yeah,
the end
yeah.
of the day. You want it to work. So I'm going
Mhm.
to install my video production software and everything on this in the
Yep.
coming days. I just got it last night and I took a couple photos of it just so I could post it. But it is, as far as gaming laptops go, I mean, the aesthetics have gotten so much better on these things.
Yeah.
So much better where uh, I'm curious to see where the next step is. I mean, right now, like I'll give you an example. I got this HP here. This is a quad core. This is a very the Spectre that I have here. This is a great
Yep.
everyday powerful laptop. If
Right.
I'm not gaming, if you, would this entice me? No, probably not. But if I'm an editor, will that entice me? That's where,
Well, that's the thing. You can't do what you want to do on that HP. That's the problem.
no, I can't. I can't do it on my Mac either. That's part of the
Right.
problem also. I
Right.
can't get it. I can't do that on my Mac. So I'm gonna be using this for a while, and then we'll see what happens. I am keeping it. I did pay. I got it bought for. The company didn't send it to me, so I'm gonna do my best to give a long-term review of this device, which I'm pretty interested to see how it does.
Hmm.
I think this is a nice, interesting market that we'll see maybe a little bit more and more because if you think about it, um, you could just connect a external eGPU to this thing
Yep.
if it really comes to shove, if you need more power, and you should be a little, good. Connect it to a display and connect it to a an eGPU, and you're good.
Right.
So we'll see. Guys, we are going to record our bonus show right now. So if you're watching this live, stay tuned. If not, go to patreon.com/whatthetech to get access to that. You can pay as little as $1 per episode, and you get access to our bonus shows. Uh, we're going to talk about a couple things actually today on the show. A lot of people are asking me about this microphone that I'm using. A lot of people are very concerned why I'm using this.
Why
I'm
using
talking
Mr. Stubby?
Mr. Stubby. This was my first mic. This is
Mr. Stubby's first microphone.
my Electro Voice Cardinal. There's nothing wrong with my Neumann. I just swapped it out for a little bit. I wanted something a little different. For all things Paul, go to Thurrott.com. Anything coming up, Paul, that you want to plug?
Uh, no, I'm going to be away this weekend. Nobody cares about that. I think my next thing is probably Build. I'll be in Seattle beginning of May.
Beginning of May. Yeah.
I think
So
that's
we
it.
have some time. We have a couple of weeks.
I think so.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's it for this week. If you're watching this, go to patreon.com/whatthetech and fund us and get access to our bonus show. We're going to talk about a couple things after this. See you guys later.
Yeah, what is this next week?
Yeah.
Couple weeks. Yeah, May's going to be terrible.
May's going to be terrible. This thing is heavy, though. It is heavy. It's not super light. This thing is heavy, but it is beautiful. I mean, it's done well.
Yeah, looks nice.
I like that they are so careful with this thing to make sure that it doesn't overheat, Or I have a broken surface I have to go get fixed. Do you cry every time a surface breaks, Paul?
I think a unicorn dies somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know what I have
What's
here.
wrong with it?
The screen is shattered. Someone dropped
Oh,
it.
jeez.
What surface is this? Let's see. How do I tell
You're not
from
going to
looking
find
at
it.
it?
You can't look at something and see what it is.
Yeah, why?
I don't know.
64
It will say
gig.
some model number,
Yeah. I think it's
which
a
you can't
Surface
read
3.
because it's in light gray on even lighter gray.
I think it's a Surface 3. That's my
Oh,
assumption.
jeez.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's I'm going to hit record and we could get started in Oops, sorry. Let me do that again. 3, 2, and 1. Everybody, welcome to What the Talk. This is our bonus show. We record this live each and every week exclusively on patreon.com/whatthetech. I'm Andrew Zarin. I'm joined by Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Pretty good. How are you?
Pretty good. We haven't done a bonus show on a Thursday ever, I think. because you have your meetings generally.
I
But
don't I
today,
don't often not have a work meeting.
you do
Um,
not have a work meeting.
yeah, I don't even know why it was canceled, but
We were
I can
talking
tell you
about
I let out a little cheer.
that you had no work meeting.
Yeah.
Instead, you're here with me for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Um, what do you people want to know? So, well, you know what? If you have questions for Paul, send them our way in the chat, and then we'll do our best. Somebody wanted to know, Paul,
Mhm.
your thoughts on Notre Dame, the cathedral.
Well, I
Y-
mean, I these things are always hard for me, like these real life events, because we go to France all the time. Like I probably spent a year of my life in France by now. We, I was just there in October. I mean, we've done 4 home swaps in Paris and probably six overall in France. I mean, we've been to the top of Notre Dame. We've been inside Notre Dame. We every trip we take pictures outside of Notre Dame. So I I, I don't want to be one of those guys who's like, hey, something bad happened at this place. Here's a picture of me with my kids when we were there in whatever year. Like it's kind of like, yeah, great. Like but Notre Dame is such a it's Paris. I mean, it's as between it and the Eiffel Tower. I mean, that's Paris, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, I think, and it's such a part of the skyline. It's such you know, I there's a goofy little cafe across the river. So Notre Dame is on an island, and then on the south side, over the river, is where Shakespeare and Company is the English language bookstore, and then a block away from that, which is just across the bridge from the Notre Dame, it's just a tourist cafe, and it's attached to a crappy little hotel I've never stayed at, but it's called Le Notre Dame, and we go there every single time we go to Paris. Like
right
we've
across
gone
from
there
there.
so many times, and there's nothing special about it except that, well, it's everything you expect: the croque-monsieur, the snails, the what do you call it? It doesn't matter. The typical French stuff. But you can sit outside and you can see Notre Dame, and that's all we care about. We sit outside and we look at Notre Dame. We love it there. We just love it. And
Yeah,
so seeing Notre Dame go up in flames like that was really hard, for sure. And reading about it as it was happening, I was positive this thing was going to come careening down to the ground, like the whole thing was going to
yeah,
collapse. And I guess the firefighters in Paris did an amazing job of preventing that, because that would have happened, right? If the fire had gotten into those towers. And by the way, the fire did get into one of the towers. The bells would have come down, they would have destroyed the towers, and then that whole edifice on the outside would have just
yeah.
collapsed. It would have been a complete disaster. So the fact that that didn't happen, the fact that today you could, from Le Notre Dame, that crappy little cafe I was just talking about, see Notre Dame and basically get the same view, right? The roof's gone, I get that, and the spire is gone. Although the spire was a fairly recent addition. A lot of people don't know that. This
That was
was
put in, I think,
added in the
sometime.
1800s.
Yeah,
It was
early
not
19th century
yeah, it was not
or late 19th century.
it doesn't matter, but it wasn't a part of the original design. Um, and so I am ecstatic that that's the case. The other wonderful thing that happened there was they have done trials there of trying to get they have all these antiquities inside, all these relics from the past, and they've actually run trial versions of what it would be like if something horrible happened and they had to get that stuff out of there. And I guess they just did it like 2 weeks before this event. So these people who are responsible for this stuff made sure to get in there and take all of the valuable stuff out as it was on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And they're incredible stories. The guy, I'll never know his name, or, the guy who was in charge of this is talking about all the orange embers falling down as he's walking out of there with this thing that was supposedly part of a thorn that was on Christ's head, and whatever, all this stuff. There was also, I guess, like a rooster that was, I don't know if it was made of copper or whatever the material is, but it was on top of that spire. And you can actually see it still framed in some of the photos. When the spire falls over, you can see the little rooster. And someone found it in the street and saved it. And they saved all this stuff. It's amazing. They had taken some statues out, I guess, the week before, a few days before,
Yeah,
because
because
they
of the
needed to be
construction they were
renovated.
doing.
So, yeah, that stuff would have been impossible to carry out during the fire. And it ended up being kind of a miracle. So I guess if you're religious at all, and the site of Notre Dame burning was a sort of a religious issue for you, at least take heart in the fact that
It was
the thing's still standing and the stuff they saved is a miracle, and it's a miracle whether you believe in God or religion. It's just a
whatever you
miracle.
believe in.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, best case. Yep.
I'm
Well, you
blown
saw how
away.
horrible that was, right?
Oh,
I
I
mean,
couldn't believe it.
can you
And
imagine? I mean, would you when that thing was on fire, it was clearly never gonna be saved,
well, that fire,
and
and it was on fire
you know
forever. It was a
yeah,
long. I mean,
hours and
7
hours and
hours.
hours.
7 hours.
Yeah, yeah,
It was still
and
burning
they,
7 hours.
listen, I it's, beautiful that they were able to save that.
I think it is amazing that it was able to be preserved, but
Yeah,
y- they'll get a new roof on that within
yep.
2 months.
Well,
Yeah,
okay, it's
yeah,
yeah, it will be, a little faster than the World Trade Center thing, I would say, but,
yeah, yeah.
it probably, I guess right now the debate is, Notre Dame is something obviously, I think it went up in, like, 1100, but it took hundreds of years to go up, and then there have been changes over the years and everything, and so the basic structure of the building is unchanged over time, but the roof could be anything. Like, the roof doesn't have to be the same, and the spire, because it was added later, doesn't have to be the same, and there's some talk now, maybe we should do a different design or a more modern design, maybe do something that would be more fire resistant on the roof, that would have firewalls built in so that a fire couldn't spread that way.
Yeah.
The thing, this was dry wood that had been up there literally for hundreds and hundreds of years in some cases, and it was like a tinderbox. The thing was maybe a disaster waiting to happen. So, we'll see. I think the French response to this is going to be very interesting to watch. There's going to be a big debate
And
about
what they
whether
do
they
and how
should,
they do it.
yeah, should it be exactly the same, which some people will call for, but I think that's wrongheaded. I think you need to take into account the history of the place and understand that nothing was ever the same. There have been changes made all the time. So it doesn't have to look like a modern thing, but maybe it should at least meet modern standards for safety and fire safety, especially. And whatever, they're going to rebuild it. And thank God they've gotten tons of contributions, hundreds and hundreds of millions of euros from rich people, mostly, or whatever, or from companies. It's neat. I like to see people rally around something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think it's I just I feel like it was very reminiscent for me of seeing this catastrophe happen, but the fact that
yeah.
it wasn't as bad as it could have possibly
Oh,
become was the
if you
best
look
part
at
of the
pictures
story.
just from the height of that fire, the fact that the outcome was what it was, it's inconceivable.
Yeah, yeah.
It's inconceivable. It was only a matter of whether it was gonna be completely destroyed or almost completely destroyed. Like, I honestly, I was thinking, unfortunately, what's gonna happen is it will be ruins, and you have this, kind of an oval island that it's on, and it will just be an empty flat space with some ruins in it,
Yeah.
and that's how we'll have to memorialize it, and that would be terrible. That would change the view of that area dramatically. But like I said, the view of that area has not actually changed, and it's a miracle,
Yeah, that
and
is.
it's just neat. I'm yeah, really happy about that.
To kind of go back to technology for a second, because I did want to ask
Mhm.
Paul, because I know he goes to France all the time, Paris especially. Um, guess what's coming back to Amazon, Paul?
I saw that. You're talking about the Chromecast stuff, and
Yeah, YouTube TV and YouTube are going to be back on Amazon. I guess they're not mad at each other anymore.
yeah, I don't know what happened exactly, but yeah, those guys have been going at it. It's well, I should say, in in the same sense that Apple versus Qualcomm was clearly Apple's fault, right?
Yeah,
Amazon versus Google was clearly Google's fault. I'm sorry, Amazon's fault. Sorry, sorry, sorry. And they were like, we don't support Chromecast because it doesn't meet our high quality, standards or whatever. It's like, you just don't support Chrome. What are you talking about?
yeah,
Like, this is the fact that it's not in your app is your fault. And then they took the Chromecast streamers out of the store because they competed with like an Amazon product, which by the way is probably illegal when you have market dominance like Amazon does. But I guess they've resolved it all. So yeah, they're gonna Amazon Prime Video will support Chromecast and Google Cast will work at Android TV, et cetera, et cetera.
by the way,
And
Amazon had done that previously to Apple.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
They had done that before with Apple, and then they
sure.
settled that. But now I guess it was Google. So I have Google TV, and I absolutely love it. And for me to watch
Mhm.
Google TV, I have to use it on my phone and Chromecast it to my TV to use it, and
Yeah.
it's so
Yeah.
convoluted that I got to switch inputs and I got to do that.
Yeah.
Google TV is great, actually Chromecast. Let me just say, Chromecast is great
Yeah.
for things like that. But I like my Fire TV, and that's what I want to use. But
You wanna
now we're
use a
gonna be able to
remote.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to use a remote.
Just
Exactly, I
sure.
want to use a
God
remote.
forbid, you know?
So, do you know
Yeah,
when
I
they're
don't
gonna
know what
put
took
the
so long.
apps?
Sorry.
Do you know when they're gonna put the apps on?
They said coming weeks. So what's happening is YouTube TV, and YouTube for Kids will all have native apps on Fire TV sometime in the coming weeks. Amazon Prime Video will add Chromecast compatibility. I'm not sure if they set a date, but yeah, this year. I mean, it will. What could take so long? It's probably it probably just work. Like you probably just click a checkbox and it works. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, right now, if you have a Fire TV, you do have YouTube on there.
Oh, you do?
You
Oh, through the
can,
web browser, you
yeah,
mean?
through the web browser. But what it does,
Yeah,
it
that's
has a
garbage,
it has
though.
a YouTube logo. So you just click that
Yeah.
and it forwards it to the web browser and opens it up, and it works
Oh, so this
fine.
is like Amazon did this? Is that
Yeah,
like a
Amazon did that.
okay,
Yeah, yeah, which is
that's good.
it's funny, but that's what I've been using for months, and I haven't missed. You
I
know,
use Dude, I watch YouTube on my TV through a Roku in my case, but, like, almost every single day.
me too.
Almost every single day.
It's funny how that happened, right? Because I was one of these
Yeah.
people that was adamant that I have a very difficult time watching YouTube because on a TV because I like to, I'm all about discoverability. I want to find new videos and search around. You
Dude.
can't really do that, right? Or you couldn't, but they've improved it so much where with
My
what
my
it knows
my
I want.
we must have done this already, right? 'Cause my you if when you go to when you watch a lot of YouTube, they recommend things to you, and that's everything you need to know about you, right? So, like, my YouTube feed is a weird combination of Star Wars, Van Halen, comedian stuff, especially, Norm Macdonald, and then, it's like movie things like Superman 2, What TF happened to this movie, everything you need to know about the black hole, like Motley Crue because 'cause they're kind of
Yeah.
vaguely Van Halen related. It's like this it's this weird insight into your own self, and it's always vaguely alarming,
Mine
you
is
know?
just filled. I mean, it is exactly who I am. It's technology.
Yeah.
It's cooking videos like binging with Babish, video
Mhm.
game stuff, more wrestling,
Yeah, I video game stuff.
car
I have a lot
reviews.
of 8-bit stuff. There's a YouTube channel, it's the 8-bit guy.
Yeah.
He's a really nerdy guy, but he talks a lot about the Commodore, Atari, blah blah blah. So I just what like it's like my wife's like, I'm going out to whatever, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, "Click." I just watch stuff like that.
Yeah, he does a lot of, yeah, you're right. He does a lot of
Yeah,
old
they're
school,
they're
yeah.
they're great. I mean, again, he's a total nerd as you would expect, but he explains like how like sound effects worked in 8-bit, computers, or how different graphics modes from the past worked, stuff like that. It's just
Yeah, what's happened with me
I don't
though,
know.
my kids have
Good.
infiltrated my YouTube.
Oh,
So
geez,
they
yeah,
watch
yes,
so now
right.
it's not only just like the shit that I like, it's now, Ryan's toy review over and
Yeah,
over
see, that's not
again.
good. You need to get them their own accounts. You don't want that stuff polluting your
Yeah, well,
feed.
it's already happened, but the problem is, here's the thing. On the TV, if she's watching it on the TV, how do you not pollute the account?
Yeah, right,
That's the
right, because you don't
problem.
have yeah, it doesn't have the multiple account thing.
Yeah, let me see. I'm gonna tell you guys my list right now. If I go from okay, recommended, okay.
Mhm,
I went down this Chris Hansen to catch a predator rabbit hole
mhm.
the other night with my wife, and we watched like all these old Chris Hansen to catch a predators, and now that's what's on my recommended. Ice T, the rapper, tries a coffee and bagel for the first time. I don't know why that's a
What?
yeah. Coffee meets bagel, a coffee bagel. UFC video of Brock Lesnar. Spooky Halloween song. So that's my daughter. 10
Mhm,
terrifying experiments caught on tape. That's definitely me. More food. The Office clips.
right.
Barrett Jackson. The Family Truckster. It's their it's Motor Trend TV. More wrestling. 2009 Shazam Mandela effect, so more conspiracy theory stuff. And then it's just like breaking news, all the news stuff that's happening. And then absolutely history, a simple mistake that killed 1950s homeowners. Oh, this is interesting. This is a UK based show, and they're talking about after the war, and they rebuilt all these homes. After they were done rebuilding, like when they reached the 1950s, where a lot of these homes were either damaged or they were tearing them apart after the war and building new homes. Throughout the 50s, they built these homes that were covered in asbestos,
Oh,
and all these
jeez.
people started dying because of the asbestos. And then it was all these dangerous things in the house, they were just talking about like home ownership and like the dangers of living in that era, I guess. And they was doing this atomic energy lab set where literally the kids were mixing like bleach and ammonia and passing
Ugh.
out. Crazy, crazy stuff. So I mean, I found that this morning and I was watching it. I thought that was interesting. Let's see what else I got here. Uh, the Wolf Pit, White Castle frozen breakfast sliders. Here's my review. That's a bizarre one I have here. And then I went down a Mad TV rabbit hole, so a lot of Mad TV clips. What's the most obscure thing you have? Is there
Most
anything
obscure
bizarre?
thing?
Yeah.
Let me see.
No
Well, I mean,
Mandela effect conspiracy theories?
no, no. I watch, I mean, I have sports things, like, what was it? I just blew by this, horror movie stuff. I'm really into horror movies. This is how LeBron James just ruined his NBA legacy. A lot of like, I gotta find these tangents. Like the problem is like, I'll watch there's like compilation clips of like Norm Macdonald across his career, but usually on like SNL, where like he rips on OJ Simpson or he
Okay.
rips on fat people or whatever it is. Like, and it's a rabbit hole because then like every compilation of his ever gets recommended, and then there are other things. And I think I talked to you about this before. Like I've spent hours and hours watching like those roasts from the 1970s where it's
Okay,
like
yeah,
Dean
yeah. The D
Martin and Frank
Martin and
Sinatra. Oh my God, those are
yeah.
amazing. They're awesome. Like I just like my wife came home from wherever she was last night. I'm watching like some guy's list of top 10 slasher movies or whatever. And she sits down and she kind of I'm just trying to get to the end of it, and she's like, "How long is this gonna be on?" I'm like, "Just
that's
2 more minutes. I
yeah,
just gotta see what the top."
that's my wife. That's her
Yeah, it's like
response.
she can't believe I'm watching this, but this is like what I watch when she's not around. I spent, dude, seriously, an hour yesterday actually before that thing I just described. There's a series of videos where it's like every single time Mark Hamill bitched because he didn't like the way his character was handled in the latest Star Wars movie.
Interesting.
There are like these things go on for hours. It's just live appearances he made where he is just shell shocked by how he didn't like what they did to Luke Skywalker. And I think I watched like an hour of it, like a jerk off last
You
night.
just
Like,
sat there watching it.
yeah, just like for no reason at all. I watched like um Netflix came out with that movie about Motley Crue called The Dirt, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's worth
How was
watching.
it?
It's good, but it caused me to watch a bunch of Motley Crue videos, which is kind of interesting. And then I actually read the book. By the way, that book is one of the best books I've ever read. The Dirt. It's amazing. It is the most honest, true to life. This is exactly what they did. I've just never seen it. It's amazing. The movie's good, but the book is amazing.
You know what bothers me about Netflix? They no longer rate the movies. You can't say like there's
Yeah.
no rating anymore for the movie. And that kind
I
of and that
yeah,
sucks because like example, I love documentaries and I no longer know which is a
I
good
know.
documentary and which is not because
So
Netflix is not telling me.
right. They have the problem with Netflix, and this is a really screwy thing, to complain about, but frankly, they have too much content, right? So, my wife and I spend lots of time trying to find something to watch on Netflix, and you kinda click around, and what happens is they commingle movies and TV shows. So, Netflix will have, like, Netflix exclusive or Netflix-made TV shows and movies. So,
Yeah.
it will be, like, just added or recently added or Netflix exclusives, and you're going through the list, and you're like, "Oh, this looks kind of interesting. It's a movie." Oh, like you can't, it doesn't have enough filtering kind of capabilities,
Yeah.
probably by design.
Well, it doesn't. It kind of doesn't want you to do it. I think that the whole story was that the Amy Schumer documentary is what Amy Schumer comedy special was the
Yeah.
nail in the coffin for rating because it got such a terrible rating,
Oh, now
and
they
they had
don't. Yeah.
invested
Okay.
so much, so they removed
Right.
the whole rating thing. And I wish I
Okay.
had, that
That's
existed because
that
you know
is
how many
believable.
you know
Yeah.
how many terrible documentaries are on there that I've attempted to watch because I thought it would be interesting, and I'm like 10 minutes in, I'm like,
Right.
this is terrible.
Right. Right.
You
Right. Right.
know? And that you don't have that ability anymore, and I don't think a lot of them do that. I don't know if Hulu does that either.
You don't have as much of a problem on Hulu finding stuff and it's just because they have less. And I doesn't mean it's better. I mean, honestly, from a sheer quality standpoint and like number of high quality shows, the only thing that comes even remotely close to Netflix maybe is HBO, but they've had 30 years or whatever, more 35, whatever it is, to get that content going. So um, I, I don't. There's nothing like Netflix, but my God, you have to go through a bunch of crap to find the good stuff, and
Yeah.
it's a little top heavy in my opinion.
Any good documentaries you've seen recently?
Yeah. Oh boy. Yes. So actually, let me see. How can I find this easily? I can't. Let me see if I can find. We are so right now we're deciding whether to continue with this. We're watching. You know the little girl from the UK who disappeared in Portugal,
Yes, yeah,
Madeline
with an M.
Madeline
Madeline
McCann.
what is it?
Madeline McCann, I guess.
Madeline McCann. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there is a too lengthy it's an 8-hour long documentary
On YouTube.
on no, on, Netflix,
Wow.
and it is way too long. So we've watched 2 episodes. We watched 1, and then we kinda talked about it ahead of time, like,
Is it the UK based documentary?
yeah, it's UK based.
Okay, I think I've seen it.
It's way too long, and the problem is you're gonna get to the end, there is no one solves this. Like, it's not solved,
Yeah.
right? So first. The Ted Bundy tapes is on Netflix now. That's amazing. It's not a documentary, but the series Mindhunter is based on the John Douglas, the guy who set up the profiling stuff in the
Yeah.
at the FBI. Amazing. I'm trying to
I
find
have
the
I have a question for you about the
Yep.
Madeline documentary.
Mhm.
What was your overall assumption of of what happened exactly? Because there's so many bizarre
Well,
things that happened.
yeah, I can't. I when it happened, I didn't know enough about it to have an opinion. As I watch it now, because when you hear something like this, the one thing I said to my wife was after watching one episode, I was like, it's kind of amazing to me that the parents weren't under more scrutiny.
For
Not
what they
because they
did,
left the
yeah.
kids alone. They were pretty as a parent, I would have done something like that myself. Although I don't know if they had locked the door. I'm not really sure what how that went, but the normal, like when the normal, it would be normal, I think, to look at the parents. Although I guess that eventually does happen in this show or in this event. I'm not really sure, but it didn't happen right up front. My big takeaway is that the Portuguese police were useless. Like they didn't do anything right, and they didn't
So
do anything
they
quickly enough.
just because I haven't seen it in a while, essentially what they did, it was a group traveling together, and they went out to
Well,
dinner
yeah.
and they left the kids in one of their rooms
Yeah, sleeping. Yeah, and then
sleeping.
the thing is, they were I don't know the exact distance, but it was very close. They could see the place. Every 20 minutes, one of the parents checked on the kids. Every 20
Yeah,
minutes. In
yeah.
fact, the thing I said about that as they were describing it was because it was another family with them or whatever, was, "I can't believe they went back that much. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's good for them," you know? Oh, I mean, it didn't work out, obviously, but I mean, it's an astonishing story, but it should be told in 2 to 3 hours, not in 8 hours. I watched that Michael Jackson thing, by the way, on HBO. That's
Oh,
an
what did you
amazing
think of that?
documentary. The guy's he's a pedophile. There's no doubt about it. I mean,
You know
there's no
what's
doubt about
amazing?
it.
I I I I
No
love
doubt
to
about it.
give people. I mean,
No,
I don't
I know, but
I
watch
don't
it.
get
You will
affected.
never.
I hate it when people are affected and blinded by someone's celebrityhood, especially
Oh,
someone
this
like
is
Michael Jackson, for
but
example.
my God, it couldn't have been more obvious. That's the thing that's terrible about it.
It's just
There is
so
no
much.
excuse for him to have gotten away with this. There is no excuse.
Well, I don't,
It
because of
is
doubt, you could set
horrific
the
that he
doubt.
died and was never charged with this, and that he multiple times got out of jail time. I don't know. I
I
feel
thought
like
it
we all know
was
people who have had this kind of, have been victimized in some way like this, and for him to have gotten away with that is the biggest tragedy. It's tragic. It's
I
awful.
but I thought it was done well though, the documentary. I mean, it didn't tell you
Oh, it's
anything
really well made.
new.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
no. It's yeah, that's what I mean. It's completely believable. There's no doubt. This is no doubt. I don't know what to say.
I
There's
think
no
it's
doubt.
because a lot of it also has to do with normalizing something like that. Think about how many bizarre celebrity stories have to exist out there that this has happened regularly in
Yeah.
that community.
It's awful. It's just awful.
And
It's
what
just
kind of parent says like, "Oh yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna let my
but
kids have a sleepover with Michael
I honestly
Jackson."
okay, but I yes, as a parent, right, you obviously are like, "What the hell?" So that's the interesting thing about the Madeline McCain thing or McCann or whatever it is. Um, I looked at what the parents did, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't have a problem with it." I know that some people, especially in the United States, would be like, "How could you leave kids alone in a room?" and blah blah blah. And it's like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. Leaving parents alone with Michael Jackson in a bedroom, you know,
It's a little weird.
it's a little, yeah, it's a little hard. And and they have at least two of the mothers who are, I guess they have exactly two of the mothers who, go on camera and say, "Look, I mean this," and they kind of explain it, and you're like, "Oh yeah, okay," but I
What
don't
do you
know.
think happened? You think it was a cut and dry thing where somebody was profiling her and then came in and realized the parents weren't
Oh,
there?
you
Or do
mean
you
with the
think
oh,
there's
I don't have an opinion on this yet. It's too early. Like, I've only watched 2 episodes. We're not
okay?
really sure we're gonna even it's just too long. They spend so much time. They talk to so many people, and they revisit the same things over and over again. Like, it's 2 hours in, and it's like, this thing could have been it should have been edited, but it should never be this long. There
There is a
just
better
isn't.
one. There's a way
Is
better
there?
one. I gotta find it that I had seen. I know about the 8 hour one, but there's a way better one also that I had seen maybe like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
That was a
You know how
kind
this
of,
is. It's
but that one had a little bit of a story you wanted to tell.
so I guess if I don't like I said, I know this I know it's unresolved. I I think the thing that made us watch this is I think I read about it somewhere, and they basically said that at some point these guys have a theory about what might have happened, and I guess the payoff is the only because there's no. It's like watching the thing. It's like Serial, like it's actually it's a
Yeah,
Netflix thing. It's like the How to Make a Murderer or something, whatever. It's like it's not resolved, right? And I hate stories that are not resolved. I know this is not a story, but I mean
it's an open ended
I don't
documentary.
like
There's
yeah,
no, yeah.
I want there to be a resolution just to understand, what happened, and that makes this hard, but I guess all the only payoff we're gonna get is a theory about what happened,
Well, the one that
it's
I saw, the theory was that there's some weird pedophile ring, and they knew
yeah.
the parents, and the parents were like
Oh,
slightly associated with one of
Jesus
like
Christ.
something weird was there. I gotta look it up. Hey, you brought up the serial one. Did you see that on HBO?
No, I can't remember what that was called, but, no, I have I think it was my son who watched it and recommended it, but I haven't watched it yet. Maybe
Did you
someday.
listen
I
to
but I
Serial?
No, I that's one of those things I put in my app and I never actually listened to.
Yeah.
By the way, along those lines, just to get off on a complete tangent, there's an Audible original called Cork. I
Okay.
think it's called Cork. Cork? I think it's called Cork, like Cork, Ireland.
Corcar. Okay.
And it's about the case of a French woman who rented a home near Cork, was murdered. And that story as well is not actually resolved, but just like this Madeline thing, the investigation raises some interesting questions about, in this case, one man in particular. And this guy can't stop talking, so he's all over the podcast.
Oh, interesting.
It's fascinating. Like and he's like very clearly the guy that killed her, but they can't prove it. You know what I
Oh
mean?
my god.
Yeah. So like France got so tired of Ireland dicking around about this that they actually put him on trial and found him guilty. And then Ireland refused to extradite him or
Extradite.
something like that, and this guy went from being a pariah to being like a hero because the French went after him.
Oh, interesting.
So if you're an Audible guy, if you listen to audiobooks,
Yeah.
look this thing up. It's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm curious to get your opinion on the
oh, I'm sorry.
serial story.
It's called West Cork is the name of
West
it.
Cork. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm gonna put this down. I'm
yeah.
I'm interested to
It's
get your opinion
excellent.
on the serial thing because I followed the story.
Yeah,
Didn't listen to all of Serial, but a lot of people go into this like thinking he's innocent, the guy
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah. So
that killed the girl. And
okay,
then I watched
okay.
the documentary, and no matter how much they're presenting the story that he didn't do it, because obviously that was the narrative that they were trying to present, that this guy is in prison for something he didn't do. But I'm like,
Yep.
everything is pointing in the direction that he did do it. That's how
Yeah,
I'm
I gotta
seeing
find.
it.
So all right. So I'm forgetting because I forget where things are, but I believe that there is a follow up documentary to Serial that's on HBO.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's the case against Adnan
Adnan
Syed or
Syed.
whatever.
Yeah, Adnan
Oh, the
Syed.
other one, by the way. So sorry. Now that I'm looking at HBO, the inventor, the one about
Oh my
Theranos
god.
and Elizabeth Holmes. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that's a great one
I
too.
am obsessed with Elizabeth Holmes. Like, this is
How
a
she was
story that was sort of in our industry, but I didn't follow it at the
I
time.
didn't
I
either.
really
Now I
I
do.
just didn't ca yeah, now I am
Well, you know what it
obsessed with
is?
Elizabeth Holmes.
The interest it was one of the first tech companies that was actually a medical company.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's why they were great at creating venture,
So,
raising capital through
the
venture groups. They raised all
alright,
this
so
capital but it had no product.
this is not in the documentary, I don't think, and so I'm not sure where I read or saw this, but someone pointed out that the big deal with Theranos was that this woman had this idea. They weren't able to make it work, right? And so they started, they were partnering with, I think it was Walgreens or
Yeah, Walgreens.
Walgreens, I guess. And so they had to do these blood tests that they couldn't do on their own machinery. So they were just using the normal industry machines
That's in the
instead.
doc. Yeah.
Yeah, that's in the doc. But I
Yeah.
mean, but what I saw somewhere that may or may not be in the doc is that this kind of thing is actually not unprecedented, right? So there are people like Thomas Edison, for example. Thomas Edison announced one time that he had solved the incandescent light bulb. He invented the light bulb. The problem was every time he turned it on, it would explode. So he, for months, would fake demonstrations of this light bulb while he was secretly working on getting it to work correctly. You should look this up. It's kind of interesting. So apparently, I don't. It might have been years, but after some period of time, instead of being exposed as a fraud, he finally one day got it to work. Right. So I think like the Theranos thing, I don't believe that her or those people, especially the people in charge, went into this to defraud anybody. I actually do believe that they thought they were going to get it to work. They figured they could get
Yeah.
it work. They were working on the Steve Jobs principle where people would always say, no, it's impossible. He would say, do it anyway, and then it would work. And they thought it was going to work and it didn't work. But you have to kind of wonder, like,
It could
what
have.
if
Yeah.
they had in fact had get more time? Would they have solved this problem? Is this a solvable problem? I have no idea. But I thought the Edison comparison was kind of interesting because he is heralded as a hero, as an
Yeah.
inventor, and and he was a fraud as well as being a hero and an inventor.
Also,
So
what he did to Tesla and all that stuff. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
a lot of people don't realize that his system for electricity would have not really worked in a real world environment, right? It was a lot
right,
of problems with it.
right.
And then we got a great metal band out named after it, right? AC/DC.
Yes. Also a
Totally good.
car,
And also
a
a
not so
car.
great car.
And also
Yeah.
not so great car right now. All right, Paul, let's wrap it up. This was fun. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Take care. That was fun.
Hopefully we
I
don't hear from any Michael Jackson fans who are
Oh, dude, you're gonna get it. You're gonna
not
get
gonna not gonna be happy with the way that one comes
well, the
out.
cereal one. I made a tweet about it a couple of weeks ago, and I got my ass handed to me by people saying, "You don't know what you're talking about. He was framed. It was the old boyfriend. It was the this." I'm like, dude, you this.
Everyone has a theory, I guess.
Everybody has a
You know
theory. Well, he was. You know what they did? They apparently a couple of months ago, a new judge said that he wanted a new trial,
Yeah.
and and then a higher court during the appeal threw it out and said no.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I probably will go back and listen to Serial. I
I
have
th- watch the video. Watch the HBO documentary.
you watch that one instead?
You watch that one instead, honestly, because Serial
Okay.
takes it's really long, and I they were presenting it as
What
if
was
it's a independent, research to come down with the truth. And to
Mhm.
me, it was more of this poor guy's innocent.
Yeah, okay.
He's innocent and he's in jail for no reason. When really, okay, so if he didn't do it, who did? And they can't name it. And they try in the
Right,
beginning of that
right.
HBO documentary, they try to, put the seeds in that it could be a number of people.
Okay.
I just didn't, they're manipulating you to kind of go down their road.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that. Oh, never occurred.
Alright. Yeah, I'll
I
watch
can't.
that. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking about watching that one.
All right, Paul. I'll see you. I'm gonna go
Alright,
and
man.
lay down. I'm really out of it today. Really, really out of it. I had a
I
bad
went to bed
night.
last night at 9:30. I was
Oh,
so
that
tired.
sounds great. No, I had a bad night last night, so we'll see. All right, Paul. See you later.
Bye.
I need to take a picture, so John, I'm gonna do my screenshot right now before I forget. Another one. All right, guys. See ya.